Thank you. I love turning up at programming conferences and playing the violin. Really confuses people. So, my name is Paula Muldoon, and I'm a JavaScript developer, as you've heard, at Cambridge Cognition. I am a former professional, well, still a professional violinist in my spare time. Speaking of setting boundaries and going home from work and doing other things, I practice the violin every evening. And I'm also a Makers Academy alumna. And exactly, yep, Makers, best, clearly. And I'm a person who spends money. So I'm going to talk to you about how my relationship with money has developed since I became a developer and started earning actual real money as opposed to being a musician. So a couple of housekeeping things. I will share the slides afterwards, so don't worry about taking notes. I'll put them up on Twitter. And I'm not a financial advisor. As you heard, I'm a violinist and a JavaScript developer, so please do your own research. Do not take what I'm saying as serious financial advice. Research yourselves. That being said, you should definitely do what I say. Okay, so I'm going to tell you first of all about my former relationship with money. So when I was a professional musician, I was really good at saving money, mainly because I worked really hard and I had no life and no time to spend the money. So I just put everything into my savings account, aside from what I needed for rent and food, basically. So if you want to save money, I recommend be in a job where you have no social life. So I had no chance to spend the money, but I did save really well, and I saved well enough to put myself through programming boot camp, and I was quite proud of how I'd done. You know, I was a freelance musician, and I had good savings, and I was sort of financially responsible. And then I got a tech job. Oh my God, I have money. It was like, there's money coming in every month at the same time, and it's there. It's in my bank account. I don't have to worry about when it's going to come. I know it's going to come every month. I wonder if any of you have come to development from a freelance career. You probably know this feeling of just joy, someone giving you money every month. And I figured, well, okay, I've got all this money now, so I'm still going to save money, obviously. But, you know, I'll have to buy these little things every now and then because I'm a developer, so I have loads and loads of money now. So I can still save all of the money and buy all of the things at the same time. And I figured, you know, £20 here and there doesn't really add up to much, especially if you're not adding up your expenditures so you have no idea how much you're spending. That was me. So a few months later, I looked at my bank account and it didn't have any more money in it than when I started being a developer. I thought, something's not right here. I was supposed to be in this job that would give me all this money and financial security and this amazing lifestyle. And why am I not on a beach coding? And turns out that these £20 here and there do actually add up. And, you know, I wasn't buying large and frivolous things. I wasn't buying cashmere sweaters every day, but, you know, the new laptop cover case or the trips to Tiger to buy candles. You can buy a lot of candles very quickly, and they're really expensive. It's really bizarre. So I had to learn about budgeting because I wanted to do things like buy a house and maybe buy a car and sort of have a grown-up life and maybe even retire. That was an interesting idea. So I was 30 years old, but, you know, better late than never to figure out how to do this. So I am half Irish, and I think this is an Irish balanced budget. Potatoes in euros, so that's definitely what you should do. So I started with a Google spreadsheet of my main expenses, my rent, what I thought I spent on food. I actually had no idea. Some of these figures I filled in by sort of hopeful guesswork. Strangely enough, they tended to be lower than the reality, as I later discovered. And just figured, okay, well, now I know sort of roughly what the main things are. And then I thought, okay, well, I should track how much money I'm actually spending. So I don't know if you've ever tried to use Google Spreadsheet or Apple Numbers, as I also tried, on your phone while you're actually going about doing your shopping. The mobile experience is horrific. So I didn't get very far with that because you're trying to like scroll in and see this tiny little thing to enter, and you think, oh, I can't see this properly, and it was a disaster. So I entered a couple things, and then that sort of failed miserably. And then I was talking to my best friend, who she and I share adulting tips together. Adulting, that's just a whole nother talk, but she told me about this thing called You Need a Budget. And I thought, that's patronizing. True, as well as patronizing, but she suggested I try it, and I had a free month trial, and of course I was opposed morally to paying money to fix my money problems. So I didn't want to actually go beyond the 3 months trial, but I thought, okay, if I make sure that I don't auto-enroll in a refund, it'll be fine. So I tried this thing, and it was really rough. I don't know if you've ever tried to really be diligent about your spending. It sucks. You can't buy things that you want to buy. It's the worst. And so there was this day that I was in the shop in Cambridge where I live, and I found this amazing yellow linen lab coat, sort of mustardy yellow. And I saw this coat, and immediately when I saw it, I thought, this will change my life. I'll be a senior developer. I'll be driving a Tesla. I mean, everything will be possible with this coat that I've just seen in the last 15 seconds of my life. And so I thought, oh God, I've got this budget though, and it says I don't have any money in my clothing allowance for this month, but I'm getting paid in a few days, so it'll be fine, right? And my poor boyfriend, long-suffering, listened to me talk out loud for about 15 minutes, trying to decide whether I should buy this coat. And finally thought, okay, I'll experiment and see if the universe does not come to a very quick heat death if I don't buy this coat. And spoiler alert, it didn't. It's all fine. So a few days later, when I got paid and I did a new budget for the next month, I immediately put the money in my budget for that coat, and then I bought it. And that was the turning point for me, to realize that I could say no to something that I felt like I needed to have, even though I'd only seen it 5 seconds earlier, and that the universe would not explode. And in fact, that I can have some control over my money. And we'll talk about later about sort of the mindset that you bring to this, but I think what's really important here is that I treated this as an experiment. Just curious to see what would happen, rather than saying, no, you can't have that, bad Paula for trying to spend money. Just, what's gonna happen if I don't spend this money? And the way YNAB works, by the way, is quite cool. The idea is that every pound has a job. So if you get paid £2,000 in a month, you allocate 500 for your rent, 200 for your food, 150 for entertainment, and so on, something for savings, and until you have no money left to allocate. So then you don't have money that's just sort of floating around in a gray zone. So everything has a purpose. So what can you do about money? I think there's 2 parts to moneying well, that is a verb. And the first, and I think the more important actually, is to understand your beliefs around money. We'll talk about that more in a second. The other one is understanding the practical steps. So let's talk about the beliefs first. So we all have these sort of inbuilt ideas about money. For example, there'll never be enough money, or money is evil, or I'll always have enough money, or if you're me, all 3 of those at the same time, which is very confusing. But those ideas shape how we deal with money, and they can be kind of subliminal. We won't quite know that we have them consciously until we start to interrogate them, but they are there. So for example, if you think money is evil for some reason, how's that going to affect you when you go to ask for a raise at your job? You're going to be defeating yourself, possibly even subconsciously. Or if you think, I'll always have enough money, yeah, there's going to be a day when you don't have enough money, guaranteed. Or if there's never enough money, you just may never have a life. You'll save and save and save, but maybe never actually spend the money on something that's meaningful to you, like a house, for example. So these beliefs really shape how we approach money. They're often given to us from our family, our parents, our upbringing, our society. There's a lot of layers that sort of go into that. And so there's a couple of ways I can recommend for how you can understand them for yourself. The first is a book called The 7 Stages of Money Maturity. And it's written by someone who used to be a Buddhist monk and then became a financial advisor. It's a logical career progression, much like becoming a violinist and a programmer. And so this book really dissects the whole experience of how we see money both ourselves and also in our relationships. Obviously really important how you deal with money with your flatmates, with your partners, your spouses, your parents. We have lots of relationships with other people centered around money. So how we deal with that actually affects our relationships very deeply. And there are lots of brilliant little worksheets in this book that you can do to give yourself a really good understanding of how you approach money. If you don't have time to read an entire book, there is a podcast called Profit Boss Podcast. And again, I put this all on Twitter. And Profit Boss is a podcast geared more toward women in finance. So if you're female identifying, I definitely recommend having a listen there. It is set in America, so some of the laws may be applicable, and the accent's very strange as Americans. I am American, in case that didn't come across properly. And there's also a worksheet on the website for that podcast. So that worksheet takes about 20 minutes. And again, it's a quick introduction to these ideas of your beliefs around money. And then talk about money. It's a really sort of taboo subject in many ways. It's considered sort of inappropriate to talk about. You don't have to discuss how much salary you're making if you don't feel comfortable doing that, but you can ask questions like, When you go to a restaurant, do you choose a meal based on how much it costs? I used to always do that. I still kind of do sometimes. I think, well, okay, I'm going out to dinner. The experience is very exciting, so I'm going to choose the cheapest thing on the menu because there will never be enough money. And also money is evil, so I shouldn't spend money, and it gets very confusing. But it turns out other people just buy what they want. It's really weird. Do you save part of your paycheck? How much? Do you have a credit card? Again, just find people that you trust, that you can have these conversations with. But just ask, and they can always say, and you can preface your question with, you may not be comfortable discussing this, and if so, that's fine. But you can ask. Talk about it. Be open about it. And I recommend also as the first step, if you want to change your relationship with money, don't change your relationship with money. Just try to understand what you're currently doing. Because you already have these habits, and discovering them might be quite difficult. You might look at your spending habits and see, oh my God, I'm spending £300 a month at Starbucks. Or even, never mind, I'm not going to get into coffee shop hierarchy. I'm not judging anyone who drinks coffee from Starbucks. Definitely not. Yes, you might find out some really difficult things about yourself, and that's okay, because the things are there, and this is a great opportunity to practice self-compassion, to say, okay, there's these things about myself that maybe I don't like, I don't want them to be part of me, but they're currently part of me, so I'm going to give them a hug and say that's okay, and how can we work together? And also to find out, with these beliefs of money that you have, they're trying, I really believe that our fears and our beliefs try to protect us in some way. So if you're thinking, money is evil, okay, interrogate that. Do you mean that maybe money is used for bad things? And can you then take money and use it for good things? Can you do something better with this situation, with something that's kind of neutral? So just learn about yourself. And again, the kindness and curiosity are really, really crucial. Once you've spent some time getting to know yourself, there are practical steps. So I talked about one, establishing how much your essentials are: rent, food, bills, transportation. Just do a simple spreadsheet and then work out what your take-home pay is after tax and pension. There are online calculators. You can go in and just Google calculate how much money I make, and it will take away your tax and pension so you know how much money you're making each month. Fun fact, I did not know this with my first development job until about 5 months in. I didn't know how much money I was making each month because as a musician, I assumed every month I'd earn a different amount of money. And so it wasn't weird to me that in my programming job, I'd earned a different amount of money each month. And it shouldn't have been that. There was a discrepancy, which just didn't occur to me was a discrepancy. So know how much money you're meant to have each month. And then after you've worked out your essentials, subtract the difference from your take-home pay, and that's the money you have to work with, to work toward savings, to work toward entertainment, and again, budget everything, give everything a purpose. And then I really recommend you need a budget. It's really, really helped me. I mentioned the 3-month trial. There's also some really good advice blogs. There's a good community around it. And more importantly, it helps you gain clarity about where your money is going. Even if you don't change your spending habits, you at least know. And that's really, really important. And again, think of these first few months of doing this as a chance to get to know yourself better, not to change anything, and definitely not to beat yourself up, because the fact that you are doing something about your money habits is amazing. And maybe you'll discover that you have the best money habits in the history of the world, and then you'll just get to feel good about yourself all the time. Did not happen to me. A couple of other useful tips. Automate everything. We're developers, we should be automating things. Automate all of your bills. Never risk having to remember to pay a bill because it's way too easy to forget and then get a bad credit rating because of that. First of the month is a good month to have them be paid. So just get that done. And max out your workplace's pension. It's amazing how many developers I talk to who don't know what the workplace pension is, who don't care about it. It's free money. Do something. So for example, my old job, there were 2 different pension schemes, one where the employer would contribute 7%, one where the employer would contribute 3%. And you just had to sign a form to get extra money, but many people just sort of didn't bother. So look out for free money. It's really nice. And contribute as much as you can, because if you contribute in a salary sacrifice scheme, basically what happens is your employer takes money out of your paycheck before you get paid, before you get taxed. So again, it's free money, and it goes into a pension pot, and if you haven't seen it, I guarantee you won't miss it. And some more advanced stuff. Some people earn money in side gigs. That's quite useful. Teaching code, maybe some freelance projects. You do need to make sure that your contract doesn't prohibit this, or you may have to have your employer sign a letter. But lots of people like to spend their weekends teaching code. It's a nice thing to do, and you can save or invest all that money because you actually don't need it. You get a pay rise. Awesome. Save that. You don't need the money. Guaranteed, almost. So I forgot when I wrote this slide that we were going to be in Monzo. So I was going to say, have you heard of this bank account called Monzo? If you haven't, that's impressive. Monzo's a bank account. And they give you fantastic information about how you spend. You get immediate alerts with your purchases, which is really good because if someone uses your card to buy something fraudulent, you'll know about it right away. And it also means I have never tracked my credit card statements at the end of the month. That just sounds incredibly dull. But with Monzo and also Starling, which is another similar bank account, both of which I use, you get immediate alerts. You can check with your YNAB. It's all on your phone. You do it as you go. No end of the month sitting there with a credit card statement, which I'm sure you will do, obviously. And also check out for ISAs. They're a really cool kind of savings account where you don't have to pay tax on the interest. Now, to be fair, the interest rates are terrible, so you won't actually make any money. But they're a sort of handy place. And if you want to buy a home or have an investment account, there are different types of ISAs for that. So take a look, check with your bank. Credit cards. Get a credit card and charge an affordable amount each month. When I went and got a credit card after I got my developer job, they offered me one with a credit limit of almost £5,000. And there is no way I could pay that off in a month. So the advice of the person at my bank was to get it lowered. So I immediately rang them up as soon as I got the card and said, can you please lower this to £1,000? Because it's way too easy to accidentally go to Tiger and accidentally buy all of the candles and accidentally have a £5,000 credit card bill. But at least you won't have to pay for electricity because your house will be heated by candles. And get free credit reports from Equifax and Experian. Again, don't worry about the words. This will be online. But you can check your credit reports and see how you're doing. And credit reports are important if you ever want to buy a house or a car or get a loan for something else. These are what banks look at to see if you're reliable. So now's the time to start building up a good credit history. And finally, cybersecurity is not something people talk about very often, but it's really important. A, you don't want your bank account to be hacked, obviously. Other accounts, too, contain vulnerable information, so I highly recommend getting a password manager. I use Dashlane. It can automatically generate long and complicated passwords, stores them safely. It can store payment info, so when you're shopping online on the train for candles, yeah, we've all been there, I hope. Shopping online on the train for very essential things, not candles, you can automatically have your card put in and you don't have to type it out and get your card out, which is a security risk. So get one of those. And also just check your credit and debit cards because they'll have different protections. If you're paying online, some will protect against fraudulent uses and others won't. So just know it happens. But the main thing is know what's going on, understand your beliefs about money, and be kind to yourself. And speak with friends and family and trusted people about it because you'll find that the answers are really interesting. You'll sort of gain trust, and that's all really useful. So that almost it from me. Thanks to all of you for coming. Thanks to Underland for hosting and Monzo as well, the bank, where we all are. And do feel free to tweet me if you tweet me as well. I like good coffee. If you try any of the things in this talk, do let me know. I'd be very curious. And I'm going to close with a final movement of my sonata that I wrote. This sonata is about my journey from being in the music world to being in the tech world. So this is the third of 4 movements. Thank you very much.